Welcome to another chat with Avid. Jack, as always, good to see you today on a beautiful Tuesday.
Yes, very nice. Thanks, Dave.
It's cool. It's like I think the next 8 days are supposed to be like this. So that's why we live in Florida.
Yeah.
So if you're listening today, it's a little bit of a piggyback off of what we talked about earlier in the month. We talked about the stock market game. We focused specifically on GameStop, which was pretty heavy in the market. And we figured we'd follow it up with really speculative investments in general and how they actually can play a role in your portfolio. We've talked to a number of people that enjoy doing it. They like to do it. They want to do it. They just don't know approach. So that's really the idea for today. Jack, why don't you kick us off with why would somebody even want to do this?
I think it's a market environment situation. So lately anyways, GameStop was, one of, at this point, many things. It seemed like, you put some money in there and it just goes off the charts almost immediately. It's crazy. Good God, it's almost everything. It's like trading cards are going crazy. And, there's stocks. Tesla's always, but that's been going on for about a year or so. But Tesla's one, Bitcoin's one, all the other coins that are out there
Right.
are just like going crazy. And, I think it's common thing to say, well, I got to get in on some of this. There's people out there getting rich and they're not me. So I need to kind of jump in and do this. I think in the past, my initial reaction would be to say that it's just stupid. Chances are it's not going to work out for you. You shouldn't do it. And I found that just doesn't work. You're better off saying, well, if you're going to do it and you're determined, here's the framework that you can use to make sure that you don't do like lasting damage to yourself.
Yeah. You don't blow yourself up and think, oh crap, now what did I do?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and I think you can apply this to anything. So whatever your thing of the moment is, fine. It doesn't really matter to me, whether that's Bitcoin or it's Michael Jordan cards it doesn't really matter. I think if you're going to do this, you want to be kind of smart about it, even if it's maybe not the most rational thing, perhaps. You want to have some kind of smart way to go into it. So it doesn't matter. You can apply this to anything today or 5 years from now. I think you could do it.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I guess a couple of principles that we could talk about. We've said this before, but the first thing that pops to my mind, the saying out there is don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Yes.
This wouldn't be a good approach. I'm going to take all of my net worth or a large portion of my net worth and hope that Tesla stock is whatever side you're on, up, down, doesn't matter.
Yep.
And kind of plow into it because you've heard of people making a killing, which I've heard of it. We've heard of it a lot over our careers, but
yeah.
So maybe principle one would be find a percentage that you're comfortable with. Maybe it's, what do you think, 5%? No more than 10?
I would say it's probably no more than 10. I think 5 is probably more reasonable of something to do. And I would say that's liquid net worth. So I would say you want to make sure that one, you know what your net worth is. So your liquid net worth is X dollars, whatever that is. That's just money that you have easy access to, not like your house or something like that. Right. Don't borrow money to do these kinds of things. But if you want to take some portion of it, I would say 5 is probably good. I would probably suggest not going above that, but certainly not going above 10. And then just of that 10, I would say to divide it up somehow. You don't have to do that, but have some kind of parameters in place to say, all right, I'm going to do 10%, 5% or 10%, whatever it is. I'm doing 5% of my liquid net worth. I'm going to set this aside for just speculative things that I want to try out that I think might be good or something like that. And then of that, maybe you break that down even further and you say, I have 1% per thing or something along those lines. And you can say, well, I'm going to put 1% here and 1% here and 1% here. And then that's what I'm going to start with. I think a couple things is, one, you have to understand that if you're going to put 5 or 10% into something, that's 5 or 10% you're not putting into something else. So you have to take it from somewhere. So you have to decide what you're going to take it from. So if you're selling some stocks, if you have like what doesn't even really matter, you have a mutual fund or you have an index fund, or it doesn't really matter, but you're taking something that's more diversified, has lots of different stocks in there. You're selling that in order to buy this next thing. You have to know that you're also giving up some kind of opportunity cost, because that's not going to do anything, of course. So you have to understand you're also giving something up if you take from one thing and put into another. So you have to be clear on what the trade-off is. So divide that up, and then just have some kind of plan. And then once you get the money in there, depending on how the stuff goes over time, I mean, listen, I think most of the things will probably be garbage. I don't know whose feelings that would hurt to say most of them will, but you have to know these things are highly speculative.
Dude, speak for yourself. I bought Tesla and shorted it. I got GameStop and shorted it. And it
might work. Like, there's a number of things, but if these things are these highly speculative type things, they're going to be all over the place. So
right,
it doesn't even matter what it is. If Bitcoin or Tesla, these things have had multiple, Bitcoin in particular is, it goes up 200% and comes down 80%. It's just literally all over the place.
Right.
It's going to be up and down quite a bit. And if you're going to do something like this, you can't be the kind of person that thinks it's the greatest thing ever when it's going up and it's the worst thing ever when it's going down. You're going to make yourself manic, and you're going to blow yourself up. You have to have some kind of idea. This is what I'm going to do. If I buy it at $50 and it goes to $300, I'm going to sell X and bring it back to this, or something along those lines. If I put 1% so it's 1% in each thing. If my 1% position ends up being my full 5%, I'm going to sell it and bring it back to 1%. But it doesn't matter what it is. Some kind of parameters written down, not in your mind, written down. This is how I'm going to handle this. And then you just kind of follow that process. You'll probably be fine. What you don't want to get into the situation is you don't do something like that. You end up chasing, you kind of get like these bad gambler habits where, you're sitting at the blackjack table and you're just like, my number's bound to come up. My number's bound to come up. Keep losing, I'm due for a win. And you just start throwing good money after bad. If you don't have a plan in place, that's what you'll do. I mean, we could talk about Vegas. You go to Vegas and you say, $500 is to gamble with. Most people will tell you. If you go out there and you figure that it's part of the vacation, you're fine. Just don't make 500, 1,000. Like, just keep to your parameters. And if you burn your 500, then burn your 500. And that's part of the deal.
It's interesting you say that. And I think we always tend to lean towards the, if you lose money. But the flip side to that is almost even more difficult. If your 1 turns into 5, our nature is to think, well, 5 is going to turn to 10.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get rid of it. So I think, you mentioned the point of written down. I think that's great. There are technical ways to do it too, with limit orders and prices. Yep. You can say, okay, if I bought something at $10, I'd be happy with a 20% return. And so 20% on the $10 is a $12. You could put a limit on that to say, if it hits $12 or above, I'm selling out or whatever. So you're removing really the emotional thing and allowing technology to help. Could be a good thing. Right. The other thing I thought about as you were saying this, we preface this with 5 to 10% of your net worth. I think what goes with that is realizing that that's not going to change your life, more than likely, right? If you just say, I've got $100,000 in liquid net worth, I'm going to use 10,000 of it for speculative investments. I'm going to spread it against 5 different whatever stocks. That's 2,000 a stock if you're following me. If that 2 doubles, it's $4,000. I mean, that's money, and 50 or doubling the money is great, but it's not like, okay, well, we're going on a worldwide cruise, or I'm retiring at 40. So you have to be mindful of and put them into perspective of really, what are you doing? Is it enjoyment? If you're trying to bank your future on it, I think that's where we've seen, unfortunately, some people, it just puts you in a really peculiar situation.
Yeah. Well, I think you also have to, having an idea of why you're doing this in the first place I think is also important. So, for example, if you're doing this because you think this thing that you're investing in has a real future and it's a long-term paradigm shift type thing, then fine. If you're doing this because you think, I don't have any other choices, I haven't really saved a lot of money, getting close to retirement or whatever I think my goal is, and I have to get 50% per year returns because I don't have another choice, then you're probably doing it for the wrong reasons. And it's even more going to be an emotional thing. It probably won't end up working out. Again, just to reiterate, the whole thing is just to have some kind of plan in place as to what you're doing. Even if you're just saying, I'm going to take 5%, put it into this, and I'm never going to sell it. And if it goes up, I'm just going to keep going up. And if it goes down, well, it is what it is. I knew I was taking a risk. That's fine. It's just to have a plan in place. One thing that is interesting, I have to say, is I've been doing this kind of talking to people about their investments since 2003 or something, having conversations with people about their investments and seeing firsthand what people do, kind of going in and out of investments, selling high and or buying high and selling low. Yeah. A comment I always used to get, this is probably 10 or 15 years ago, people would talk to me and they would say things like, well, I just need to find like the next Microsoft or something, because at the time, Microsoft, even back 10, 15 years ago, was kind of the Tesla of the time. It was a story. Well, if you would have bought Microsoft in 1987, whenever it IPO'd, I don't remember exactly, but you'd have some godly amount of money.
Bucks worth $1 million.
Yeah, right. I just need to find the next Microsoft. Come to find out that Microsoft was the next Microsoft. If you just would have invested your money instead of worrying about trying to catch like the next wave, if you just would have started saving and bought some, goofy index fund that owned a lot of Microsoft, you would have killed it since then. So it's just a matter of these things. Like Tesla might be the stock of the moment, or I don't even care what it is. It doesn't matter. Right. This isn't like a brand new thing. I've heard these stories before, and it was in the past. It was, I wanted to own the next Microsoft, or now it's Apple, I guess. It always used to be those things. Nobody was telling me they wanted to buy Apple in 2005. They wanted to find the next Microsoft. So it's incredibly difficult to do this. It's not something that I would hang my hat on, that this is going to be the thing that bails me out. No matter what, the path to actually building long-term wealth, I think I said this in the GameStop thing, is save your money, get good returns over the long term. You're 30 years old now. You're going to be 65 at some point. You got a long way to go. Just invest your money and get a good return. That doesn't mean that you can't do speculative things or have some fun and goof around and buy some things you think might just be the next world-changing thing. Fine, by all means. Just have a plan and going into it so that you don't completely blow yourself up and go the opposite direction, something you can never recover from.
Yeah, no doubt. And really, if you're starting off or your liquid net worth is lower, the most important thing or the biggest return you can give yourself is actually saving the money, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, if you have $25,000 liquid net worth because you just got done paying off student loan debts or credit cards or whatever it is, and you save in 1 year $10,000, well, that's a huge jump from 20 to 30 or 25 to 35. So that's a great point. Great point.
Yeah. For a long time, your biggest return is going to be just save your money. That's going to build your net worth much quicker than finding some hot stock. It is going to be hard to do, even though it seems like now it's not hard to do. That will change. Yeah, like you said, just keep saving and building it that way and having some patience for sure.
Yeah, I think those are great. Any final thoughts?
I think that's it. It's gotten crazy. It's been interesting to watch. I would say this definitely reminds me of that early 2000, late 90s type of situation. Yeah, like when it was
.coms.
Absolutely. It was like, if anything internet related, .com, this and that, it was like that. It would, go public and it would go 300% in a day. It was wild. This kind of reminds me of that. I don't know that this ends up the same way, but it's gotten insane. So it's been interesting to watch. It's definitely something to be interested in and keep track of, but you got to be careful if you're going to participate.
Well, and not to drag this out, but I think what's also interesting is today versus 20 years ago is you can look right on your phone and see it, update it. You can place a trade literally. Like I don't even have to, back in the day, people would have to call us and say, hey, I want to buy 10 shares of Microsoft. today you don't need us to buy this stuff. You just go onto any one of these new things that are out there, your Schwab account or whatever, and do it. So it's
free. You can go buck wild and just trade all day and it doesn't cost anything.
Yep,
So
no cost. So if that's your thing, go for it. We're not going to stay in your way. Keep a few principles in mind that we mentioned, maybe percent of your overall net worth. How does it fit into the picture? Do you have a process? When are you going to get in or get out? Long term, what does it mean to you? And save your money if you're not. Do that first. And in that order, I think, you should be fine.
Right.
So good to chat with you, Jack. See you next week.
All right, see you, Dave.